Hello everyone, it's Latrice Torres, CEO of LeaderKeys Consulting. July is Disability Pride Month, and we have been featuring information, resources, stories, and insights on how we can build and maintain better and inclusive spaces for people who are differently abled. Today, we are going to talk about navigating workers' compensation. It's a topic that's near and dear to my heart as I watched my mother at the very young age of 40 actually have to end her career due to a workplace injury. I want to go through and let her tell her story in her own words. But before we jump into her story, let's explore a little bit about workers' compensation. Did you know that in the United States, an estimated 1.3 billion people, which equates to 16% of the global population, experience a significant disability? Most states are required to carry workers' compensation insurance. This insurance covers the cost associated with work-related injuries and illnesses. And they must also provide a safe working environment to minimize the risk of injury. Quite often, this is referred to as providing an accommodation. In the United States, there's an average of 2.8 million non-fatal workplace injuries and illnesses that are reported per year, and many of them result in temporary or permanent disabilities. Workers' compensation covers various types of disabilities, including temporary total disability, permanent partial disability, permanent total disability, and temporary partial disability. I recently sat down with my mom, Sharon Basham, aka Gran, to just really talk through her story. I moved her in with me about 6 years ago, and I really wanted to provide a space for her to be able to easily navigate given the disabilities that she has had to live with for the rest of her life. I wanted her to have the space that was comfortable, accommodating, and most importantly, supportive of her continued disability journey. So with no further ado, I'd like to pass this conversation over to our recording that we did a few weeks ago for her to tell her disability story. Mom, aka Gran, because that's what most people call her. Tell us a little bit about your professional background when this incident occurred.
At the time that this incident occurred, I was working as an administrative assistant for Maxine Waters Employment Preparation Center, which is part of the LA Unified School District. And anyway, I was a supervisor of about 300 employees, and I was, pretty much in my element, enjoying my job. And one day I was setting up for a meeting, and whoever would have thought that that little bit that sounds so simple, setting up for a meeting, would change my life. But it did. And at that meeting, at that time, we were preparing for the superintendent to be in attendance, and we had a number of people. We had set up for 400 people, and we found out we were about 200 short. We had 200 more people than anticipated. And I decided to get the custodial staff to come in and bring in some extra chairs, and they pushed it in on one of those little carts that chairs are carried on, and I decided to lend a helping hand, and I reached over, grabbed the chair, and lifted it up off, and at that moment, I felt a pull in my back. It was just as simple as that. Nothing fancy was I doing. I just literally reached up and grabbed the chair. And in that instant, I had to call someone to come take that chair out of my hand because I couldn't move. I just kind of froze right there and went, okay, this is not good. Yeah. And that's kind of started me on this journey. Yeah. Simple movement.
Yeah. I mean, and it can be that simple. And so I know your backstory because I was there, and I know that started the journey, and it's incident one of two. Yes. So before we get to the second incident, let's just talk about kind of what happened, immediately, not immediately after that, but I mean in terms of, okay, you're hurt, you're hurt. What was the first thing that came to your mind considering the meeting you were setting up for?
Yes, I had to find a way to get through that meeting, and as I was walking, I realized I was having difficulty just in a basic movement, which told me not to sit down. So I kind of stood my way through that meeting, bearing the pain, but I knew I needed to go to the doctor. There was no doubt that I had to go straight to emergency somewhere. At that time, they didn't really have clinics called urgent care. Everything was a hospital emergency. So I knew that I needed to do that, and immediately following the incident, I went straight to the hospital. And from that move, going to the hospital, not understanding what was about to happen. So up on arrival to the emergency room, which was Kaiser Permanente.
All right, so I got to pause us really quickly. If you're watching this and you're from California, you know all about Kaiser. If you're not from California, little background, Kaiser is the largest medical provider in California. I will go as far as saying they kind of make and break all the rules.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
When it comes
Kaiser's
down to
everywhere.
medical care, it's Kaiser,
Yeah.
right? Like that's your option. And so just keep that in mind as we talked through this, is that Kaiser itself is just like a behemoth of healthcare in terms of, the way that they provide their care. So let's go from there. You checked into a Kaiser hospital.
Checked into Kaiser. The very first thing she said when she said, "May I help you?" and I said, "I believe my back then went out." She politely turned to me and said, "We don't do backs here."
We don't do backs here.
We don't do backs. And I went, in this pain that I'm in, what do you mean you don't do backs? And then she says, sign this paper. She had me fill out the little paper and all that and have a seat, which I told her I couldn't sit. That was another problem. I couldn't sit down. And I'm like, I need somebody to see me. So she asked for my card. I gave her my card. So we kind of, went through that whole little scenario. And I stood up and I completed my paperwork. And she took it. Next thing I know, I'm standing for maybe about a good half an hour. And finally someone came from the back and said, "Okay, we're going to bring you in and we're going to put you on a table and we're going to put some ice on your back." And I'm like, okay. And I'm in all this pain, but I'm still just going along with it. And I go into the room and I tried to lay it down up on the table, which I really couldn't do. So immediately she told me that they can put me in traction. And I thought, traction, what does this mean? Because this is something I never had done before, never even heard of. Didn't know it was such thing as that. So anyway, they proceeded to take me to a different room to lay me down and put me in these traction. And traction is where they lay you down, they kind of stretching the body.
Yeah, it is what it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
It is.
Painless except for the pain you having immediately. It didn't help the cause any. So, but the problem came.
So hold on, wait a minute. So they did traction even before they did x-rays or anything like that? Like,
yes, she laid me down. She said they don't do backs. That's the proof of that. I mean, because they laid me down and did that. Yes. But then when I went up to get it was like about a 10 or 15 minute thing. Yeah. When they went to set me up, I couldn't get up. That was the problem.
Yeah, because traction is kind of like the worst thing they could have done in that moment.
So in that moment, she got the doctor. The doctor came in and said, "We need to send you and get some x-rays and see what's going on with your back." And I'm thinking in my head now, they really don't do backs here. Which was mind-blowing because Kaiser is one of the biggest medical facilities.
It's the behemoth.
Great for children, kids, and was great for me up to that moment. And I thought, oh my God, I'm in trouble now. And I knew I was in trouble.
Yeah.
Just that whole little scenario going on there. And of course, they get me there and they get the x-rays done, and the doctor comes in and let me know that I have a ruptured disc, which I never had before. I hadn't had no back problems. Physically, I was in great shape. One of the best shapes of my life, really, honestly, at that time. And so I couldn't.
No prior back problems.
No prior back problem, no prior anything going on with me. I was a very physical person, active person. So I wasn't having any issues, and here was a ruptured disc. And still keep in mind, I'm only thinking, I just reached up and took a chair off a stack of chairs.
Well, yeah,
How does this happen?
Thinking back on it, I felt like it was like one of your, probably, you were in your prime.
Yes.
Like that's
39.
when I think of it. I think of like this was like the prime of
39 years.
You know, it was that, finally learn your lessons in your 30s, hitting that
Get ready to have a good time.
Right. Of course, now I understand that fully, being well into 40s. But that's what I remember, that this was not the time. I remember earlier in your life of there being periods where you were not as fit and healthy and vibrant. But that was that was the vibrant time.
Yeah, that was the vibrant time.
So only because I know there's so much to this story, I'm going to move us a little forward.
Okay.
Right? So in this story, you now have been getting something done, not by Kaiser, because Kaiser doesn't do backs, but you were getting some things done.
Because they referred me out. And that referral out took me to a convalescent hospital.
Because that's the only choice.
Only choice?
Right.
The only closest facility that they interact with that could do anything for my back, which was more traction. Yeah. More than anything else, it was more traction. And that was a problem.
That was a problem. Yeah. So, that becomes a problem. So at this point, the goal is to rehabilitate so that you can return to work.
Yes.
And what you did.
Yes.
It took some time.
Yes.
But because I remember it being about almost a year
It
or
was
something around there.
About a good year.
So you do some rehabilitation, you go back to work. You're back to work, and I'm going to move us forward to about 2 years from the original incident. You're at work.
I come in to enter my office. Soon as I got to work, there was one of my clerks that informed me we were having a situation. And as she was speaking to me, I'm still moving to my office with my briefcase in my hand, with my mail for the day that I pull out of my box under my arm, and I take my key and I stick it in the door. And when I stuck it in the door, she was still talking to me, the clerk was. And I said, okay, let me go in and put my briefcase and everything down. Now, I had not even peeped in the door, but I was holding the door with my back, standing against it and just having it cracked. And I went to turn to step into my office and fell over my computer monitor, which wasn't supposed to be on the floor.
On the floor, right.
It was supposed to be on top of my desk. But the custodial staff had mopped and waxed the floors and had rearranged, and I don't know who was responsible for putting my office back together.
But they didn't.
They moved things around, but that was left right there. And I hit the floor with everything in my hand. No opportunity to brace myself. And all I could feel was numbness, with this radiating pain. And I started boo-hooing because instantly I knew I was messed up.
Yeah.
I knew not just my back again, but my knees as well. I fell all the way in, so I had knees, shoulders, backs, everything took the blunt of that fall.
And there you were.
And there I was.
Yeah. So, okay. I actually don't want you to really relive like that day and moment.
No.
So I'm gonna move us to What injuries did you sustain?
My back, re-ruptured the disc, and this time it protruded out even more than it had protruded when it ruptured the first time. And my knees, both knees, but the left knee was worse than the right knee. Shoulders wasn't dislocated, but I was bruised up really bad. But all these things came gradually as the years passed by.
Right. Created rapid age.
Created major problems for me. Major problems. Yeah. So the rehabilitation for all this took years.
Years.
Yeah. Years. Years of it. And then they weren't willing to bring me back this time. I was already rehabilitated into a job that, you know, was supposed to be easy for me, easier.
Yeah, I mean, you had the job that most people are rehabilitated to come back to work.
Yeah.
So, like, it's very difficult.
But they forced me to go through rehab and told me I had to rehab to something, so I chose medical billing.
Yeah.
And I went to school. I don't know you remember
that. I remember that because it was far before it became a thing. Like now, you know, first of all, anything that's a remote job, you know, or can be turned remote is very popular, right? But then it wasn't a thing. You had to find something that could be a thing that you could do.
That could be a thing just because this is workers' comp requirement.
Yeah, so
I really want to stress that.
Let's dig into that because I think that that's worth us like really talking about. So let me for a second come out of the story, and I'm going to put on my HR hat.
Okay.
Because of course, being in human resources for over 25 years, I've kind of made my rounds to all the different places in HR, up and including a stint in benefits, compensation, and workers' comp, and in the leave administration portion of my career, I had to learn a lot about workers' comp and what that really meant. And for all those who really don't know, actually, workers' comp is a form of disability. Workers' comp is what's paying for the bills when you have it. We all pay into that as employees, and that's what we get if we happen to be injured on the job, right? It's that job protected insurance that pays our bills. Correct. The problem with workers' comp, or what can be the problem with workers' comp is, and if you ever experience, as soon as you go to the hospital, it doesn't matter whether you got hurt on the job or not, the first thing, one of the questions that's on there is, did this injury occur at work? If you check that box, yes, you now belong to workers' comp and not your primary insurance, right? It's an important thing, but it also kicks off the disability journey.
Right.
With them in the driver's seat.
Yes.
That's
totally
the
driving.
Important thing to know.
Totally driving.
Workers' comp becomes they call all the shots.
Yeah.
So now we have the situation where your medical insurance, Kaiser, initially when they say we don't do backs, what they actually were communicating to you, because let's be real, they were actually saying, you told us this happened on the job. This is actually workers' comp. That's really what they were trying to say. And that workers' comp was going to be who decides everything from this point forward. And in this case, this is whether you can go back to work. And once they decided you can't go back to the job that you had because of the injuries you sustained, they say, pick something you can do. And at that point, it's something at home, and that's where the medical billing came in.
Yes. Okay. That was just all part of what they require you to do. And they bought me an ergonomic chair to have at the school. It was delivered to the school so that I could get through my long classes, because that was an all-day class that I had.
That was the accommodation they gave you.
They gave me that accommodation.
They gave you an ergonomic chair for ruptured discs and injured knees.
And even had it transported from the school to my home when school ended, when I graduated from it. So, yes, they called the shots.
Oh, yeah, workers' comp
rehabilitated me back to a desk job. But LA Unified School District, because it was a second injury for me, just was not willing to accommodate me. And there's nothing you can do if your job decides, that they don't
can't
want
accommodate
to accommodate
Yeah.
you.
They have to do everything that they
Because-
can in terms of a reasonable accommodation. That's what it's called.
And that happened during the first one because
Right.
they did get me my aeronomics chair, which was really the only thing they could do, and also the little stand that you put your feet on. They did buy me one of those too.
Yeah.
So I was already in a desk job.
That's the
and
reasonable
that was it.
accommodation.
So
Yeah.
yes, and I guess the second time around with LA Unified School District, they sent me to their doctor.
Yeah.
Just to confirm that you already been rehabilitated. We can't
There's nothing
do
more they
anymore.
can do.
And
they can't accommodate
They
any
can't
further
accommodate.
as well.
which
Yeah.
kicked me into early retirement.
Yeah, I'm about to say that's the thing. It
Disability
forced you
retirement,
into
yeah.
a disability-related retirement.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to get a little bit deeper into that for just a second because I don't really want to dive deep into this whole disability retirement ocean. But I do want to bring this up because this is something that people don't understand, which is they will then also rate
Yes.
your disability
Yes.
and assign it a percentage.
A percentage.
So
Yes. And the
say that
very first percentage I received from that first back injury was a 27%.
Okay. And explain that a little further for those who
And
don't
so
understand
what
that.
they're saying to me is that, yeah, your back, you suffered this injury, you suffered the back, but this the only amount we feel out of 100% your back being perfect, that only 27% of your back is suffering. That's pretty much what that means. So that they were only going to cover me financially for 27% of
27% of your losses.
Of my losses.
And it's a
Doesn't
loss of
matter.
what you could potentially earn in the future and
Yes.
things like that. And
Yes, yes, just 27%. The knee was rated at 13,
Okay.
13%.
Okay.
And that powered my whole body. And already I was using a cane. This injury got so bad I wound up in a wheelchair.
Yeah. Like I said, there's a stint in a wheelchair that we have pictures of that a lot of times I show those pictures and they're like, when was your mom in a wheelchair? And I'm like, actually, since this whole happened, you've had wheelchair stretches here and there.
Yes, as a result of traction. You know, when I kept saying I couldn't get off the
Yeah.
table and I couldn't move, it was pressing, the disc was pressing on my sciatic nerve. So the traction kept protruding the disc out more. And that disc, every time it came out more, it pressed harder and harder on my nerve to the point that I couldn't walk.
You couldn't walk. Yeah.
Yeah, this.
You know what's so interesting is
A
I'm
very hard journey.
I'm actually having a moment right now
Yeah,
because
'cause it
when
was-
my back went out, maybe it was the timing. I was like panicking. I was just about to get married and everything. But what a smarter thing would have been for me to do was actually to give you a call and ask you what should they not do, because the first thing they did was traction.
Yes.
Traction.
Yes.
And I still feel to this day that I still have the back issues because of that decision.
Traction.
But it's the first. Why is this? Why is
I
that
don't
the
know
first
why
thing
they
did?
pivot to the traction when it really does. Everyone, literally, that I have spoken to that ever had back problems were all given traction, and
First.
you got worse.
Yes, you
They
get first.
pivot straight into the, and then when they realize it don't work, now they want to put you in the gym. They want you to physically start moving areas that you can't move.
Can't do because of this traction.
Because of this traction.
that has now caused you even more
Yeah.
pain than you needed to have. Yeah.
And that traction put me in a wheelchair for about 3.5 months of my life, that I could not walk on my own accord. I couldn't even put my weight on my own body. And it was chair exercises that I got determined I was going to do.
Yeah, you had to
to
do
get
your own
out
care.
of the
you had to do your own care.
I did my own care and said, no, I'm not stuck. I was too young.
Yeah.
I was too young.
Well, let's talk about that. So that's the thing. That's what this story is culminating to, is that this was the end of your career, essentially.
It did.
Like it ended your career and then changed your life forever. And it changes everyone's lives.
Yeah.
You know,
Everyone.
it impacts everyone. You know, I will say that I've been really proud of you for like the way you have taken your care into your own hands, because I've watched you try literally everything under the sun, like everything conventional and even unconventional in terms of pain management, hypnotherapy,
Oh
right?
God.
Yeah, you
Thank
literally
God
gone
for that.
through.
That was a lifesaver for me the day I turned to hypnotherapy. Yes, because I was having allergy reactions to medication.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My mom and unfortunately myself, we're literally allergic to like every medication
Yeah.
out there. So they're always scared to give you anything, and you're also scared to take anything
I'm scared
because
to
of the
take
reaction.
anything. Yes.
But so hypnotherapy ended up being the thing. So tell us a little bit about hypnotherapy. I'm gonna make sure I'm saying that right.
Yes, this is where you get with a doctor, psychiatrist, or someone of that nature, psychologist, people in that line of work, to help you to learn meditation so that you can relax.
Yeah, this is deep meditation.
Deep meditation. Oh yeah, it took me a year to honestly gain full control of my body, on meaning how to relax every part of me. And if you think about it, if you think of your shoulders right now, they may be up and you don't realize it. Everybody can do that self-check immediately, sitting where you are, and just let go.
Yeah, let go.
Let go, and you'll find things dropping.
Yeah.
Because you don't realize we live in that state. We do this to our body all the time. And these were the things that I learned through hypnotherapy, just in order for him to relax me enough so that he can help me learn how to just settle down and
focus
breathe
on
it.
each piece of your body.
Each part of my body. And letting each part go.
Yeah.
Literally. So that was my lifesaver that got me really
Get you through it.
Yes.
Yeah.
At first, when I began the journey, like anyone else, where you're a little skeptical, you know, it's like, am I going to be able to relax? Am I going to be able to visualize something pleasant? You know, visualize a space. It could just be the ocean. And can I literally get myself relaxed enough to feel like I'm actually in that ocean?
Yeah.
And that was the journey.
The journey.
And I finally
learn how to do that.
Learn how to do that.
Yeah.
Yes. It's my go-to.
Yeah, it has to be.
I really don't know the last time I've been on any kind of major pain meds because I really was more afraid of the reaction.
Well, pain meds for the back because again, I'm always having to have to move this story because, like, how many back surgeries did you end up having?
3.
So 3 back surgeries. Tell us about some of the other. I call her bionic gran a lot because I'm like, she's had surgery everywhere. So talk about some of the other surgeries you've had as well.
I wind up having to have shoulder surgery, rotator cuff on both shoulders, left shoulder first and the right shoulder second. And these came as a result of that initial fall, but in using your body, again, years later, this was about 8 years later when I had my first shoulder replacement. So a lot of times we get injured on the job and everything doesn't show up at one time. But you still got to go through workers' comp.
Well, yeah, we're going to come back to workers' comp in just a second because we're gonna tap on a big thing that most people are saying. We're like, why didn't she sue, or why didn't it like? So we're gonna get on this and everything. So
I still had to go through that event.
Yeah, before that.
And then I wind up having to have 2 knee surgeries. One was arthroscopically, and the next one was total knee replacement. And that will bring me back to the workers' company where I made the decision that I made.
Yes. So first start with the decision, and then we'll unpack why you made that decision. So
you have an option to seek a lawyer and sue, you know, for your damages that you obtained on that job, or you can deal with workers' comp and reach a settlement through them. And the main reason why I went with workers' comp, I chose them over suing, is for the lifetime medical care. Because I knew that with back, knee, shoulder injuries, later on was going to matter more than right now.
Let me jump in really quickly because I want to make sure everybody understands what actually happened. So there's actually almost 3 choices here. So you could sue and take your chances from that. keep in mind, if you sue, they're going to take into account all of the different factors. Remember, we were talking earlier about the percentage. She said 27 and 13, that's 40%, right? So like that's one thing, and that all gets thrown in and calculated, and they come up with a number and throw a number at you, right? That's the suing part of it. Right.
Yes.
The other part is mediation, essentially, through workers' compensation. And with that, the mediation could also be a monetary number. But keep in mind, it's probably going to do all those. It's going to be based on those factors as well.
Yeah.
There may be some other things that are thrown in there, considering what could the potential earnings have been, and that type of thing. And then again, they're probably going to chop that by that 40%, you know, whatever. So like there's that, right? Or the option in which you went with, which was getting lifetime medical, that no matter what, medically, workers' comp will continue to pay and cover. Yeah. That's the option you chose, which I, by the way, think is actually brilliant. You would think that getting a check in the mail, as we all want to wake up and get a check in the mail, is great, and most people want that. But what happens when that money? Because it's never going to be. Trust me, they are working their forces behind the scenes, literally working against you to get you the least amount possible, you know, for that. So the lifetime medical is actually a brilliant choice. So talk about that.
Because workers' comp will close that book on you if you're doing the suing thing. If you're going monetary wise, they will shut you down no matter what happens later in life. For me, I was more concerned that I was young having this happen. What's going to happen when I become an elderly person and I'm naturally going to start flowing into some issues? But I'm going to start off with issues, so that means my issues is only going to get larger and larger and larger. So I thought it would be far more beneficial for me to go more.
I mean, we all know we're gonna end up in the hands of Medicare, Medicaid, you know, all that. We're gonna end up in the hands of that at some point in our lives, right? But this is you were like literally facing whether you're going to start on that journey now. And not only what that lifetime medical was inclusive of was everything pertaining to my welfare regarding my injuries. So one of the things I started with was a mattress. I don't know if you remember that workers' comp bought me a really... The mattress is actually infamous in the family. You want the greatest nap of your entire life as the bed to be in. So yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Because they would do that. You don't know that going into it, you know, which is why people always want to just sue. But workers' comp, that lifetime medical means so much. That means taking care of you literally no matter what the need is.
Well, it's almost like the continuation of the accommodation, but now it's accommodation for your life.
For my
for your well-being and how you're going to function.
Yeah, over the years when things come up that you're not even thinking about it, don't realize what come up. It's just one phone call into workers' comp, you know, and say, look, I have this going on now. I no longer can do this, and they get it, you know. Some things you got to fight harder for, you know, and now I'm in a whole new state. It's a totally different thing because now I'm balancing state to state from California to New Jersey.
Yeah, so I moved Mom in you've been out about 5 years now? So I moved in about 5 years ago to basically be, you know, help be her caretaker. I can't wear the caretaker hat because
I do.
Mama's she's very active, and she takes care of me most of the time.
That's what it boils down to.
That's what it has come to that. We're each other's caretaker. But there are still a lot of things that I do take the responsibility for that just come along with it. If nothing else, to be like a secondary advocate and everything. There's most you know, doctor's visits and stuff like that, you know, that we're here for, and then it's the roller coaster. You have injuries that some days may not bother you as much as other days. We've taken trips where we're like, okay, is this a wheelchair trip? Is this a scooter trip? Yeah, is this a cane trip? You know, and sometimes we've been on the trip and started off a cane trip and has ended up a scooter or wheelchair trip.
Wheelchair trip.
So
it's the reality.
It's the reality.
Reality of our dog. It is.
Yeah. So it's been a journey.
Yeah,
It has been a journey, you know. But throughout it, I think there's two things that have come out of it that I think, in terms of, because I asked you this as we prepared to do this interview, which is like, what advice do you have for everyone? And to me, I feel like it came between two things. One, your advocacy of your workers' comp person, and then self-advocacy.
Yeah, and
right?
Self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Self is like
you have to
yeah.
advocate for yourself. You have to learn to ask the question, not be holding it in and thinking it. We all have the thought, but very few people will verbally speak it, and you just got to learn to put it out there. And if you don't, then things go wrong. Like when you had your surgery, your doctor just happened to say to me that you were up there itching. And I spoke up for her when the doctor said it. She said, yeah, for no reason at all. And I said, did you give her lactated ringer? Because, by the way, that's one of the things.
Another stupid allergy we have.
That we're allergic to.
Can't even hook up to an IV without hiding. Ridiculous. Ridiculous.
It is.
I know people watching this are going to be like, what do you mean the IV? Yes, we are allergic to the water in the IV. It's actually the stuff that preserves the water. So that's a whole nother topic. But you have to be able to say something and speak up and everything. Like it literally can save your life. Yeah, it can save your life. So these are the things we kind of do for each other. We advocate for one another just to get through life when situations, go wrong. But that is a big key for me with everything. I advocate and I speak up and I don't hold back. And you educate yourself.
I educate myself constantly. Yes. And I educate the doctors too.
She is not kidding about that. She for sure comes in. And we're not talking, I read on WebMD education. We're not talking about that. No, we are talking about, I read 50 pages of this, in another life. I'm pretty sure you were a doctor.
I had to be honest.
I'm pretty sure you were.
Even I had several doctors to tell me that before.
Yeah.
But it's the things I've learned. It's what I've learned over the years. And when I go to a doctor and I'm new to them, they don't know me. So it is my responsibility to make sure that they're well aware of what my issues are. So it matters, because the simplest thing can take you out. It's as simple as a blank. Have an eye, your day changes.
It does. So we're gonna kind of wrap up, but I'd love for you to just share, like, again, it's been a journey. It's a journey you're still on. Technically, you're still on this journey, but again, it's like, you're beautiful. I ask this all the time. I look like my dad, y'all don't. But you look like, depending on at what points people come across you. Some people come across you and they only know you to be in a scooter or a wheelchair or with a cane. But even with all of that, there's still like a glow and a presence that's about you. What is the main lesson you have learned in this journey of, again, having your life turned upside down and having this disability that you just had to learn to live with?
Everything, life. I learned that there's somebody worse than me. So while I want to have a pity party, I don't allow myself to, because I know that there's somebody in a much worse state. And I say that because there's an image that comes to me of this young black girl that got burnt over 90% of her body. And she lives every day. She walks out and smiles at people every day for what you can tell is a smile. She's had many surgeries and things like that. That's far worse than me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you think of children, that's dying of cancer, they don't know what plan is.
Born with, cerebral palsy or things like that, and they figure out how to live vibrant lives. Which is really kind of what this month is about. And I think at some point it was called Disability Awareness Month, and I think the community actually changed that to Disability Pride Month, which I actually get. I think that's actually a really good move, because your disability also doesn't mean it has to be a limitation or that you are having any less of a life. Yes. You live with it.
And you do live with it, and it's terrible when people look at you and say you don't look disabled.
Yeah.
I've had people didn't want me to go in the handicap room. Now I know I'm in pain in my back, but because I'm not in a wheelchair.
Yeah. At that moment.
At that moment. And I praise God for every day that I step on my own accord, because I know what it's like to not be able to step. And I know tomorrow could be one of those days, just as simple as that. Me waking up and rising on the side of my bed.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't even know when I put my foot down what I'm gonna.
What it's gonna be.
What it's gonna be. You know, am I gonna bear my weight today, or is this side gonna go? Yep, nope, not today, dear.
Oh yeah, no. I've
And
come
it's
down the
as
stairs
simple.
and found you in the bed. You're like, yes, not today.
Not today. Not
it.
today. But I
Not
thank God. I just thank God for every day, and I know that there's somebody worse off than me. And so I don't pity myself at all. I just move forward in that day. Say, well, Lord, this is my day, and I'm going to smile about it.
Right.
Even if my cane in me is shaking as I make every step, I'm going to smile about it.
Yeah.
And if you ask me how I'm doing, I'm going to tell you I'm fine. You know, I have my life. I woke up this morning. So it's things like that that really get me through. And family. I love my family. And I have a lot of you guys I want to continue to be here for. I want to continue to see everybody grow and prosper and be a part of that journey. And I don't want to be a burden. So long as I'm staying positive, I'm staying active, I get up, I have my exercise. I'm not in nobody's gym every day, but I have the exercise that keeps me mobile. And I depend on it every day. And I tell myself, well, you want to walk tomorrow, don't you? Well, we got to do this today. So 1, 2, 3, 4, here we go. And so that's really it. Just having a positive mind through it. It's not going to stay the same. I know it's going to change.
Yeah.
It's going to change. You know, you may be in pain today, but you may not be next week. You know, so it won't. Everything changes.
I love that. Plus, we'll just play No Diggity at least once a week.
No diggity, no doubt.
That's right.
And I'm gonna move.
And you gonna move. No Diggity gonna bring Great Grand out, and nothing else is gonna bring.
If it ain't nothing but one of my toes.
That's it.
I remember that
see
time.
the No Diggity just be the shoulders.
Just be the
So
shoulders.
we'll do that.
Sometimes that's all I got. But, but I thank God for that too.
Yeah.
So really, it's just staying positive and knowing that you're gonna rise above it. It's not gonna always be like that.
Yeah.
Even though in the moment it seems like, you know, this is it. My life is never going to be different. Yeah. But it does change. It does. You know, but advocate for yourself.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mama. I love you too. Thank you for doing this.
You're more than welcome.
I'm just going to lay on Mommy now.
Lay on Mommy. That's what kids do. They lay on their Mommy. You're never too old.
I appreciate you doing
never
this.
too old.
No. All right. All right, you guys. Now that I've got Mama's lipstick on my lips, I guess we'll just call that a wrap.
Thanks for listening to today's authentic and unapologetic conversation about disability and workers' compensation. Would you like to sit down with me and have an authentic and unapologetic conversation about something you're passionate about? Well, get in touch with my team today. Looking forward to hearing from you. And in the interim, go out there and be awesome.